уважаемые коллеги! Рад приветствовать сегодня всех и видеть столько заинтересованных лиц в информационной безопасности, особенно не в простом контексте молодой компании, где
young company that has no resources, that is growing well, and there is no one to deal with the information security. That's my story. I started my career as a civil servant, then I worked for the company with more than 1,000 employees, and also I had an experience of working in a small startup with several IT guys, and instead of any regulations, there was just a TXT file, how not to collapse anything, and I believe that a DLP can solve all your problems, but it turned out that the system doesn't work without a strategy. And you come to a new company, and what do you see here? I usually call that a dark forest. You see such a picture, there are no regulations, the passwords have been shared in the common chats, and for instance, you trust everyone because this is an old-timer, VPN. You heard about that, but probably this is just because for watching YouTube. But why do we need VPN for the corporate network? Mail, usually there would be one mailbox for the whole company that would process all the files, starting from accounting to marketing, and probably it doesn't stand for security, and phishing associates with fish and fishing rods. What it results in? Loss of data, loss of trust, and not because the information is valuable, and sometimes trust is more valuable than money. You lost the client's database, you lost the business. Penalties, Roskomnadzor, Bank of Russia, STEC, and the tax authorities. They don't care why you don't have regulation. So if you don't have regulation, you will be penalized. Business risks. The suspension of the process is idle hours, reputational damage. A regular cyber threat may totally grind your activity to a halt, to an audit may somehow disrupt a contract. And the main mistake made by such organizations that about building information security at the moment when the incident has already occurred. For instance, the data has been leaked, and please introduce a firewall or provide us with a protection. It doesn't work like that. This is not a magic button that you push and a person comes and fixes all the problems that you have made before. Let's consider the typical mistakes that you make when you once come to a company. Your eyes are bright and you think about streamlining the risk model, and you would somehow distribute the access rights, and you would follow the state standards, ISO, etc. But it's not like that. The standards are good, but once you have a database, once you have technical opportunities, and only once you have necessary personnel, only then you can take advantage of the conditions that are described in those standards. The basic processes, that's the backbone. You cannot. You have to take stock. You have to know your archives. You have to know what domains you have, what servers have been installed, what channels are open, what are closed. You have to start with practice. Look at your architecture. The second mistake. When, for instance, you come to work, the boss would say, let us buy XDR vulnerability scanner, so that's 1 million rubles, and buy that. But your infrastructure is not prepared for that. You don't have necessary people to maintain that. And people would store passwords under the keyboard written on a sheet of paper. Therefore, such solutions make no sense. They're good, but only once they could be maintained, once your infrastructure is prepared for that. Low engagement of the users, it brings zero utility. The third problem, when security tries to limit everything, it doesn't work like that. Once you introduce stringent policies, strict rules, when you forbid thumb drives, when you are filtering the traffic to the extent that even the client's letters do not make their way to you, the business tries to bypass the cybersecurity system. So they store everything on their own Google disks. They are proceeding to Telegram, and cybersecurity remains aside. We should not be the sword of Damocles, but we're a service that provides necessary conditions for the business work. We have to be part, just like the safety belt in a car. You fasten the seat belt, and it doesn't prevent you from steering the wheel.
Третье, это, наверное, тоже
Next thing, one of the main policies when we arrived and we made a lengthy policy, but who actually is going to read those 40 pages long documents? No one. The very first documents later on could be complemented, could be added. Just make 2 or 3 pages long document where people have to turn to in case of an incident, what they're allowed to do or not allowed to do. A user is not supposed to be a lawyer. They have to see a clear picture. They have to read everything from a paper in paper. This is a guideline, how the people should act in case of an incident. What are the events?
Мы разобрали банальные ошибки.
So we have analyzed the simple mistakes that are put into the first step. So let us prioritize
Построение информационной безопасности.
information security when we only are in the beginning, in the infancy. First thing, when you have just hired by the company, you can ask 3 main questions. What you are protecting. Don't try to do everything at once. Don't try to protect the whole office and say that we will defend everything. Identify critical things, critical infrastructure, CRM, accounting, what is absolutely necessary. Then you should identify where it is all stored, because from time to time people would say that we have one C, but we do not know on what service, or for instance, it would be actually stored by the system administrator. This is not right. It has to be regulated. You have to know where it all stored, and then you have to identify the priorities. For instance, what would happen if you lose those files, if the system administrator is sacked. So this is like in healthcare. First of all, you have to treat what is aching, and only afterwards you can cut the nails. So access and storage, this is the second step. You have to determine what your critical data is about. You have to understand who has access to them, how the access has been granted, for how long it's been granted, who is granting the access, and who is denying the access. As a result, you will have a systematized system that would help you later on not to make mistakes when certain file got disappeared and you do not know who worked with it, because you would know who had access to that, and then eventually you will be able to see the logs of those people if syslot is not there. Quick wins and how to show your efficiency for the top brass. Probably that's the most important thing. A multi-factor identification. We're living in the year 2025, but people in the company still are not using at least two-factor identification in order to enter the critical infrastructure. The backup has to be introduced. Out of my experience, I once consulted one company which was setting the system, and they released their repository and accidentally removed the database of their clients. They had a backup, but no one checked that, and that file was corrupted. As a result, they lost all their clients' base. And regretfully, it could have been avoided just with one check, where once the identification is done through Telegram, that the backup is done successfully. Not everyone has to have administrators' rights, only those who can do that. As my colleague and my friend said, one administrator may crush the whole system, and 2 administrators can destroy the whole planet. Turn on VPN at least to work from outside. People do not know why they need VPN once they have RTP, but RTP that provides an access from outside in is not very safe and secure. Basic documentation. Make a policy that will not be put on the shelf. The people have to understand what is required for them. It is no more than 2 pages long document. You can add something later on, but make at least the backbone. The access regulation means that every person has to know how to get access, where to turn to, and they actually have to prove that they need that access. Incident regulation. All the people have to know what should be done in case of a phishing attack or viral infection, where to go and what to do with that. And probably this is the curse of all CISO. You have to talk to the business using the same language. You don't have to say that the court 448 is sticking outside. You just can tell that you will lose the client's base and you would lose your business. Two-factor authentication, that's a good thing. And multi-factor authentication is also quite good. But once the company doesn't have it, you can explain to the business that any may get access to the personal account of Director General. Matrix, that's a great thing for justification. People love figures. Make flowcharts. Describe the number of incidents before and after. Time of reaction. Show how fast the incident would be processed and reacted to. Number of people with multi-factor authentication that would prevent phishing, 80% cases. So don't use bans, but rather use advantages. Show how advantageous in information security is. If you make backups and if you check them, show how fast the system would recover once this or that software fails. If you have introduced a multi-factor identification, there will be less mistakes. If you distributed the access, there will be no questions who erased this or that file. And the people would not be looking for the scapegoats. Security is not equal inconvenience if it restricts the business. Offer an alternative. Don't close access to anyone. It has to be convenient for the people. Let's have a look at the minimum viable product that is required for automation and the work from the very beginning. Passwords and multi-factor authentication would secure you 80% against all the phishing attacks. VPN is better than RDP on the internet. Backupping. You have to check whether it was backed. You have to take stock of your administrator. See if you have not removed a PAM system. You have to have an Excel table to see what administrator has access to what system. Taking stock of the assets. If you do not know what you're protecting nothing. What could be deployed instead of some fashionable systems? You have to take stock of the logins so that you could see what is going on in the company. Antiviral with a centralized control. 2025. It's high time to understand that antiviral, that's a must, not good to have. And you have to centralize that and to run that from one point. Backupping. VPN with logs. You have to know who is getting access when the connection is done. You have to have a table to confirm that. If you don't have the VD policy, or if you don't have a Linux-based system, well, at least you have to have an Excel table who was granted VPN and who was granted access. Check the updates. Multiple attacks may happen just because the software was not updated. Every day we discover new vulnerabilities, and the more frequently you update your operating system and other elements, the less chances are that the old vulnerabilities would undermine infrastructure. Low-cost WAF, there are lots of open-source solutions. Install at least that. It would be better than nothing. And take stock of the incidents. Again, if you don't have a specialized system, you have to have at least an Excel table or make that in block note.
Это для желающих повторить автоматизацию.
This is for those who actually wants to
Скан портов.
automate everything. You have to scan ports by schedule that would notify you about some channels that opened or ports that failed, notifying you through Telegram. Checking domain certificates. You will always know when SCL certificate is no longer valid. Monitoring the entries to the administrators' accounts. Usually, the administrators would have their own account, and you have to control that. Backupping. Script, log, and notification, as I said, you get that on your phone, whether it was successful or not. You have to keep track of the critical files. If you have some important documents, these solutions are open source, and they would help you to address some of your tasks. And as been said here, the main idea is that most importantly, you have to get alerts, not just collect logs. If you just store logs, you are not collecting them. They're just being stored there. Most importantly is how you react to the changes in your infrastructure. Let me tell you more about my experience in different companies. First 6 months, we introduced the access rule. Many were dissatisfied because the accountant could come to the marketing, would process some information, then the designers would come to different folders and could delete certain documents of our contractors. And initially, the accountant was dissatisfied that he was restricted in terms of acceding to marketing. And once we introduced those rules, there were no more questions who deleted this or that file. Then a compartmentalization of the storage. So there was some confidential data, and the people actually would grant access to certain data to other people. So this is the minimum set of regulations, but at least this is something we launched, basic automation. Says here, Telegram now says hello once the backup is successful, when we have a new alert. MVP documentation. This is not 180 pages long policy of information security. These are those 2 pages that the people are using, not just this is something that is stored on the market, on the shelf. You have to train key users. We just gathered a small team within our office. We bought pizza, and we started explaining to the people what they can do and what they are not supposed to do, what phishing is about, and we would explain very mundane things, and the people are much more engaged once it is done informally. When they are put at the desk and you say, put your signature, confirming that you are familiar with that. The people would forget about that within 2 days. And informally, the people would get more questions, and they would wonder how to make sure that their home computers are good, etc. What it all started with? We just took a sheet of paper, and along with IT director, were sitting and making rectangles and circles defining the infrastructure. Then we prioritized the routes and the servers and what may undermine the work of our infrastructure. Everything would be put on one page. This is one-page format. If you cannot put the information that you want to render to your interlocutor on one page, it means that you do not understand what you want. If it takes volumes, then this is now good. We made a very simple map of assets on drive.io. And this is when the system administrators said that finally they see the whole infrastructure, because we discovered different sites that even the marketing department didn't know that it would exist. And probably that's the most important thing. The employees are your allies.
не ваше руководство помогает вам преодолевать ваши
It is not your management who helps you to overcome some problems, although it may be the case. In most cases, these would be the people who suffer from leakage of data and other violations. So these are the HR staff or your subordinates who would be criticized for that, and they would come to you for assistance. System administrator has become my main ambassador when he realized that I'm not a punitive sort, that I helped him to solve problems.
сисадмины бегают в отдел.
And since recently, these system administrators are approaching our department, not the management, to help address certain things. So we can help our colleagues, although this is not our responsibility, especially when we speak about the small business, when the people assume more responsibility than the job description says.
Случаи с юристами.
In case of lawyers, I think that, again, these are one of the most important people,
Информационная безопасность.
because information security embraces everything, including the methodological work.
Наверное, не все, наверное,
And
учились на юридических.
Not everyone
И
studied at legal departments, and law faculties and lawyers are the people who would help you to execute a document. Always happened for me.
рассылку, которая
One of
противоречит.
them prevented the mail out that
И
contradicted our federal law.
его в почетные защитники компании.
And he is among the honorary defenders of the companies. And
Это люди, которые
business customers are the people who are interested in having everything safe and secure. When you show to them your work, in that case, we have shown it to them.
сделали ему вывод, где
We came up with a conclusion when a business customer himself said it would be critical if the competitors find this out, and he extended money.
это то, что ждешь от
And this is what you expect from your allies, that they would sponsor you as well.
обучения и вовлеченность.
Training and engagement, information security has to be humane and clear for everyone. It should not be a punitive sort. We started from pain. When a phishing attack
Предотвратили
hurt one of our employees, we prevented that, and therefore we saved the company from critical case.
в дальнейшем мы вели небольшие видеоролики.
Then we
По 3 минуты.
actually introduced short 3 minutes long videos where we'll be saying what phishing is about, how to get protected, that don't have to use thumb drives or scan QR codes so that you do not know, etc. Also,
различные стикеры на экран.
we were using different stickers next to windows where the people, without reading,
Запустили фишинг-неделю.
that would not push extra buttons.
людям фишинг, как это обычно
And we launched the phishing week campaign, and the people who responded to that, to the system, and who did not click the phishing link or informed the information security in compliance with the policy would get a bonus such as a chocolate bar, for instance. But the people who clicked the phishing links and made the first, hope the last mistake,
Мы просто пожурили, сказали,
they were just
но мы не
reprimanded for that, but we
не заставляли.
did not punish them for that. We did not make them describe why they did so or explain why they did so, because if you punish people, they will stop turning to you. They will stop sharing their problems with you. And these are the people who have to be in the same boat with you.
Собственно, как и сделал с нами HR, он
This is what HR did to us. He helped us to make 101 course for the novices. 10 minutes without any extra details, with real cases that it is very clear for the people.
геймификация защиты.
Gamification of protection.
Легче воспринимают
People
информацию, когда
better perceive the information once they play games. I do think that this is since our childhood, different quizzes and ratings. You can make a table where the people
какой-то
who
фишинг,
experience some phishing with a positive result
какие-то бонусы.
would get some bonuses.
В ходе этой
And sometimes in the course of that table,
людям попадались какие-то шоколадки,
people would
какие-то лишние
get some
кофе,
chocolate bars or some extra cup of coffee at the expense of the company.
что они молодцы в общем чате.
Or sometimes just we would say in the common chat that they're great. And sometimes we would make information security quest end of the quarter. We would be looking for the stolen server, and along with the HR, we made it clear for the ordinary people, the people who would be engaged in the information security, eager to help us and try to help us. Or eventually, sometimes I would come to other departments and units of the company, just with no purpose sometimes. So we call that networking, but people say thank you just because they notice your work. They try to share your pain. I think this is normal. This is good. The users are just like the first year of your protection. SOC or SOC, but at a minimum scale. Once a person identified the phishing, this is thanks to him that we prevented a massive attack against our whole infrastructure. You can find more details there, so you can read that offline, the conference. So to report, that's normal. We introduced a simple button to complain about the letter. So the people no longer have to complain that they got a phishing letter, please fix it. They could just push that button and the phishing letter would be immediately sent to our department. And within a week's time, we got about 14 such complaints, and 3 of them were of real threat. And we put that onto the blacklist in order to prevent any attacks from there. Feedback, this is our fuel. In my practice, I try to say thank you to the people for turning to me for sharing the information, even if that information turned out to be useless. This is much better than just ignoring that. If you ignore people, in future you would not get any information from them. Training plus trust equals mini SOC. When the people trust you, they can learn about certain mistakes even before you learn about that, and you can react preemptively and fix it. Scaling up. When you can scale that, and what you should do at that moment. You get task by task, and you're running out of people, and there are more than 150 people working for you. New structures, new units emerged. The structure extended and the business. We have this and that, and let us, for instance, introduce CM, or someone said that DLP is good. This is when you have to scale it up. To think about making a team, to delegate your power and who to delegate that authority. This is when you have to build the processes accordingly. CM, DLP, etc. When you have to deploy that. Once you have built a minimum viable product, you have to collect the logs, and when the reaction processes are there, and you have people who are going to monitor that and react to those systems, then most likely this is high time for you to introduce certain systems. This is not a magic wand. If, as been said on the first slide, this is a mistake if you just buy a solution and there is no one to service that, if the infrastructure is not prepared for that. But when you have that, or when you have built a minimum viable product, it's high time to introduce solutions that would help you to scale up, to embrace the whole infrastructure as a result of your growth. Expanding the team, as I said, the first signs of that is that you are lagging behind. You don't have time for that. There are areas where you do not have expertise. We are not Mr. Knows All. And there are people who probably are more knowledgeable about certain things, and you have necessary budget for that. Money is spent on those people. Then you have to scale that up and extend the team. First, you would need the information security engineer, the person who would check your safe open channels. You need an analyst who would be analyzing the logs, who would be checking the statistics, the changes, who would monitor new vulnerabilities and would process them. Compliance policy, external requirements, and sometimes they are called papersec. So the people who are being laughed at, saying that these are not the real security officers, but in essence, these are the people without whom the company would just die. under the strikes from our regulators. And a motivated junior is better than a tired senior. I can share a specific case. We once hired a white hacker, a junior, inexperienced one who just got certified. And there was a senior who acted as a consultant or as... and the price was the same, actually. But 5 months later, we didn't need the support from the senior. We had a ready-made pen tester, white hacker who could process the data, not at some high salary, but for acceptable money.
Use the time and use the moment. I guess this is the key thing when you're trying to scale rapid growth of the company. At this point, your infrastructure grows, threats of internal leakages and employees with access to confidential information should be verified. They should be checked. When you have some new parts of the organization, you should check them from the start. Non-stable infrastructure. In case if you're building IT infrastructure on old hardware and legacy hardware, it's a time bomb. It works today, but tomorrow it will stop working. Some legacy points will not work, and most likely all your network will just collapse and crash. Our regulators love changing regulation almost on a monthly basis. Keep it on track, monitor it, and it will be very beneficial. It will pay back if you monitor regulation. And in conclusion, in case if I would like to express the key thoughts. So what are the takeaways? Information security is not a department. It's a service. We should not be a Damocles sword over every employee. We should provide for a safe environment where we can control this environment and they may feel safe and not be alert while doing their job. And we should be understandable, clear, and predictable. Don't try to boil the ocean. Prioritize things. See what's important for you in the here and now. Build it layer by layer. You should eat this elephant piece by piece. Avoid burnout. Don't try to boil the ocean once again, because there are some reasons. And sometimes things do not depend on you, and it leads to a failure, and you start burning out. And in the very conclusion, I would like to extend my gratitude to everyone. I am done with my presentation. That's all that I have. So in case if you have questions, I'm happy to answer. Yes, you. Please go ahead, but please wait for the microphone. Good afternoon, Valery Riprincev, LIT Kazan. I would like to learn more about your experience in CISs or in-house maybe. In case if you see that there's a large client, how do you assess their whether it's hopeful, whether it's promising or not? Because sometimes it's a large client. I would like to see your experience in this. Like it would be a small organization, but it's promising it, it's eager to grow. You painted a nice picture when you're nice and people love you, but when there's a lot of pressure in the company, when there is 1,000 people head count in a central city in Russia, but it's in the province, you don't know what's going on there. Do you do an investigation there, or what do you do? Because when you get there, maybe you get faced with a situation. You will stay there forever. You will keep on working forever, but there will be never result, and top management will have no idea what to do. As I said, first of all, analyze what's critical to you. Don't try to catch every single opportunity. Even if it's a large company, there are some critical moments that are important for good operation of this company. Build a table of priorities and do risk analysis. I guess this is the first thing that you can do. Do inventory check and see what's important there, because in case if you just try to defend this company, by all means, if I get it right, if I get your question right. In healthcare, it's personal data primarily. Look at what personal data being processed by personnel, try to protect them or try to localize them and keep them in one storage. Oh, before you conclude the contract. Okay. So from the start, you do not understand it. You're not sure whether you need it or not. So what is the life hack? How do you know whether you need this client or not? Maybe you look at them and then you see that, no, in case if general manager makes a decision and you get into the situation only later. But if I were to choose back in the day, then I would assess the workload of my personnel, of my team, in case if it's a company where you're not planning to scale, where you're not planning to hire more people, it's a well-established company. So you have a checklist that you have, right? Whether it's promising to cooperate and to provide service to them. Well, yes, but oftentimes you are not to choose whether you do it or not. It's the decision of general manager, and it just gets imposed on you, and you just have to deal with it. And my narrative was about do risk analysis and request the budget in case if you need it. Yes. My name is Ivan. Hello. Thank you for the presentation. I love the case how you saved money on pen tester with the help of external training. And what are you to do next once the junior realizes that he's a great hacker and he wants to leave the company and go somewhere else? When a junior is motivated, well, I'm not going to do anything. I usually let people go because people need to develop, and they will always be searching for a better place, of course. They anyway will look for better salaries, but we will just raise one more person. Okay, so you just get ready in advance. In 6 months, I will need to get a new junior and to train him. Yeah, kind of like that. Hello. Thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. My question is the following. My first place of employment was a clinic, 2,000 people personnel. I was the only security manager there. The biggest security is that all the management of the organization was resisting any information security process. No matter how I tried to explain it to them, I explained from the standpoint of compliance, from failing to comply with the rules, still they would not, I would not be able to sell it to them. Has it ever happened to you that from the start it was very difficult to explain that information security is actually necessary, and what did you do with it? Well, I can explain in terms of my experience, and what I'm going to say is not silver bullet. I have had cases when I failed to deal with leadership efficiently, and in my view, consequences would have been critical, but leadership had another point of view that had other levers to solve these matters. So you should just try to understand. You should be a part of the team. In case if the team can solve this matter differently, then do not resist, let them do it. In my case, it was with a railway company. This company would do railway transportation. CEO of the company, I was in the managing company, and he was in a subsidiary, so general manager of the company was completely resisting introducing a security system using keys. He could resolve it on his federal level. He could just come to terms with someone, with people, with some big fish, and nothing would happen. In case if he can't sort it out this way, then in your risk assessment he drops from 9 to 3. Then handle another risk. Yeah, that's clear. Aside from that, one of my colleagues said, first, talk to your leadership. In case if your leadership doesn't help you, then approach those who are interested in this. If those who are interested cannot help you solve the issue, then just leave the company. You're not in compliance with your role. Yeah, I have the same opinion. Thank you. May I?
Здравствуйте.
Hello.
У меня вот такой вопрос.
My question is the following.
Вообще подходить к безопасности,
How should
если
I
я
approach
вообще единственный человек,
information
который
security if
умеет
I'm the
компьютер в
only
компании?
person in the company who knows how to work with personal computer?
Ну, менять должность, да? Ну, понятно.
Change the job, right?
Если вы как
Leave
минимум
this company.
уже есть
No.
в этой компании,
In case if they have you in the company and they consider you as information security person, then I guess they're interested in this. No, they don't consider me information security personnel. No. I authored the whole infrastructure. I created the infrastructure the way I could. I did it the way I could. And system administrator, right? And in the future, they will curse me because how I did it.
Ну, то есть я смотрю на все это, я понимаю,
So I'm looking at this situation and
как мне к этому вообще подступиться?
I just don't know how to approach it because it's too rocket science for me. I believe you just need to talk to people, maybe a couple of gifts, just come closer to people, build contact with these people. In case if they feel your pain, then they will start paying attention to information security in their vision. I had a long conflict with one lawyer whom I mentioned, and I guess to some degree this conflict is still in progress, but as a lawyer, he's an amazing person.
Он тоже не понимал мою боль.
He also couldn't feel my pain. He couldn't understand why I wanted to do it this way, not the other way. And in the end, after every document, we would sit together and discuss and talk, and then we would find some common ground. Maybe words and negotiations and a conversation will just solve it. Maybe you should try to talk to people and try to explain. But using business language, of course. Don't say that port 445 is sticking outside.
Вот. Но, опять же, определите момент риска.
Just
Определите,
see what is critical to them, what is their pain, what is risk for them, what's critical for them. Try to speak their language. According to, maybe it's important for them not to lose 500 million.
вот, определите.
Maybe it's important. Just explain that here are the risks, here is this risk and that risk. We can do this. It will cost us this. Much less than 500 million penalty. I'm exaggerating. 500 million is for the second violation. Okay, I see. Thank you very much. You gave me great ideas. Thank you very much. I was happy to help.
Есть еще вопросы какие-то?
More questions?
Да, вот мужчина.
Yes, please go ahead. Hello.
Я задам немножечко простой вопрос.
My question will be simple.
Где грань между
Where is the line between a good information security officer and bad information security officer? When relationship between information security officer and regular user are not loyal, when you prohibit everything, when you
до этого выполнять?
don't let him do the things that he used to do, where is the line between that?
Должны определить, во-первых,
Well, the line is
какого-то
if we talk about a specific user in your environment, you should first determine the things that you prohibit him from doing, are they really necessary to him? Maybe his manager tells him, do this job, and he does it
Вот, а вы его блокируете.
as part of his role, and you're blocking this from him, then that's the wrong thing to do. Then your regulations are not built the right way, and the person just doesn't understand why he cannot do this. You should make sure that his work is safe. Don't limit his opportunities, just make it safe for him. As long as people understand why this and that thing is prohibited, he will be willing to do that. In case if he doesn't understand why these things are blocked, then there are conflicts.
Пожалуйста.
Thank you. Welcome.
Вопросы? Далее.
More questions?
Видимо, все.
I guess we have run out of questions.